Good morning. Belief. Take a moment to consider the beliefs that you hold most dear. I believe that we live in an amazingly beautiful world, and that through science, we can make sense of what we see and experience. For me, science is a vehicle for questioning, exploration, discovery, and even personal introspection. I'm privileged to share my love of science with others by providing professional development to all of the K-8 teachers in my district. Specifically, though, most people just see me as a science nerd. You know, that one. And according to some, that means that I'm a bit socially awkward, though relatively intelligent and definitely passionate about science and education. So bear with me today. Of course, I haven't always been a teacher on special assignment, or TOSA, as they call us. I spent 9 years teaching middle school science at a K-8 public school not too far from here. I loved being both a classroom teacher and a science Olympiad coach. And like so many of you, I thrived in the classroom. And not to be too pompous, but I was pretty good at my job. Well, at least according to our annual test results, I was. I actually had 2 classes that scored 100% proficient and advanced on the CST in a row, and no class ever scored below 92%. But the truth is that those scores didn't mean that I was a good science teacher. Don't get me wrong, I was proud of my students, but in the back of my mind, something was missing. Something didn't feel right. I didn't know what exactly, just something. And so I can vividly remember when the first draft of the Next Generation Science Standards was released. I remember clicking on that link and anxiously waiting for that file to open. I was eager, hopeful, and worried. There was so much initial misunderstanding around the release of earlier standards, and I was really worried that science would follow that same pattern. Would it just be a repeat? At last, the file, it opened, and I scrolled, and I started to read. Conduct an investigation. Engage in argument from evidence. Make observations. I kept scrolling, and as I scrolled down the tears fell. Perhaps not for the reason you'd think, though. Because finally, there was a moment of clarity. Because I understood both what was missing and what I could do to make it whole again. You see, I think science education has a problem, a very real problem, and it's an image problem. And I think that our new standards have the power to address that problem. Let me explain. Have you ever asked a child to draw a picture of a scientist? It's a very worthwhile endeavor, and it's worth your time. I promise, you should try it. I can tell you, though, what you're likely to get. A man wearing a lab coat, probably with glasses and crazy hair, holding either a magnifying lens or something that is or is about to explode. Every time, it's the same. Man, lab coat, glasses, crazy hair, an explosion. And if that drawing could somehow convey intelligence, they'd tell you that he's really smart. Maybe that's why he wears glasses, because smart people wear glasses, right? I've always wondered, though, why is it that children don't just draw pictures of themselves? Children are natural-born scientists, right? Their favorite question is, why? So why doesn't that picture just look like them? Why is it that people like me are called nerds? Aren't we just curious and passionate thinkers? I think, sadly, though, that science education shoulders much of the blame for this, and unwittingly, we've all been pawns in the propagation of this myth in one form or another. Beginning in 1998, teachers across the state implemented what was, at least at the time, considered to be a cutting-edge new framework for science education. It was the first of its kind, and contained within it were new lists of science standards. They were all eerily similar, however, because they all started with the phrase, "Students know." Students know the common properties of salts. Students know the earth is composed of many layers. Students know light travels in straight lines. Gosh, it's actually a bit painful just to read them. And I want to let you in on a little secret. You didn't actually have to do science in order to teach these standards, because I'd argue that these standards did not accurately reflect the discipline. Reading, answering questions, completing workbook pages, those all can get kids to recite discrete facts. Did they understand the significance of the science? Did they understand how scientists came to those conclusions? Did they appreciate how science plays a part in their daily lives? Nope. But that wasn't in those standards nor on the test. So science in our classrooms became a hollow shell of itself, if it was even taught at all. And these were notably dark times in science education. But thankfully, and I really do mean thankfully, change is the only constant in life. And I'm sure that we would all agree in this room that we are living in the single greatest time of change in education's history here in the United States. With the adoption of the next generation science standards and the development of the preschool learning foundations in the area of science, we can no longer portray science as a passive process or a list of facts to simply know. Yes, there are still disciplinary core ideas that students must grapple with over time, but science is a process, and an active process at that students must engage in just as scientists and engineers do in their day-to-day work. Finally, we have a beautiful marriage of both content and process in the NGSS. Every performance expectation starts with an active phrase that denotes how students may engage with content, and a broader theme that provides a context for exploration. Learning now must be rich and multifaceted. A little example for you. This year, an incredible group of kindergarten students, under the leadership of their amazing teacher, Mrs. Stephanie Burcombe, embarked on a year-long Twitter buddy partnership with a classroom in Texas. You may recall earlier this year, though, that Texas experienced severe flooding, and many families were displaced from their homes. The empathetic Burcombe bunch, as they are affectionately known, wanted to know how they could help their friends. And after attending an introductory NGSS training, Mrs. Burcombe had an idea about how her and her class could take their very first steps from the 1998 standards towards the NGSS. As a class, they decided they wanted to build flotation devices to help keep their friends safe during the flooding. These are kindergartners, remember. They tested potential building materials in tubs of water, collected data, and classified materials into two groups: materials that would be appropriate for flotation devices and those that weren't. They sketched possible designs, built them, tested, and refined them, all while remaining focused on what they saw as their very real need: the safety of their friends. Not only did they learn about the design process, but they also learned that they, even as kindergartners, have the ability to solve the problems they see in their world. This is exciting and empowering. This is the power of science and engineering. But you know what? It's also math, reading, writing, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and you guessed it, creativity. To do science, we must engage in each of these because science cannot and should not ever stand alone. And I'm thrilled that we have a new generation of young scientists, like the Burcombe Bunch, experiencing this rebirth of science education. Now, science certainly isn't the only discipline to have undergone significant change in the past 5 years, and nor will it be the last. We can very much have the same conversation about reading, mathematics, social studies, and so on. These changes are also reflected in the new ELA, ELD standards and throughout the curricula here in California. We all have changes all around. And you know what? Change hurts. It's hard. And some would say that change poses problems. I'd prefer to consider them as opportunities for personal and professional growth. But either way, problems or opportunities, no matter what grade level or subject area, we all have a choice to make regarding change. And for the sake of our children, I hope that we all choose to be part of the solution. But I'll be honest, because I'm a little bit greedy, and I hope you'll forgive me, because I hope that we all choose to lead that change in some way. And that might look different for different people. Maybe it means volunteering to try out a new lesson sequence, or asking to attend a conference and sharing your findings with your colleagues. Maybe it's leading a professional book club for your department or PLC team. But whatever it is, like our students, we all need to take an active role in this process. Thus far, I've been so fortunate to see our teachers take their first steps forward towards addressing what I see as science education's image problem. And together, we are trying to reimagine an education where science, math, art, reading, and writing all work in concert to produce a cohesive educational experience for our students. Like our disciplines, we truly are all better together than we ever could be apart. So, as we get ready to start this next school year, I challenge us all to remember those beliefs that we called to mind just a little bit ago. Reflect on them. Think about how we can sustain and foster those beliefs as we travel through this sea of change. And remember that change, though difficult, is an opportunity for personal and professional growth, if that's the choice we make. So consider carefully what role we all play in this process, because our students are going to take their lead from us. And they're counting on us, all of us, to lead the way down the path to a brighter future. Thank you.